to present Austin Faith Dialogue, brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries. In the weeks ahead, you will see these and other programs by various denominations. Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs series at the crossroads of religion and life. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues in the area in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Join us now for this week's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
When does one's personal faith become a true driving force behind other personal interests? And when does one's faith become the edge one needs to overcome obstacles and to succeed? Hello, I'm Ruth Landsberg, your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. Today we're going to discuss the relationship between faith and a unique part of our American lives, sports. Joining us today are Malcolm Minnick of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Jimmy Tompkins, baseball coach at Anderson High School, Greg Harper, the vice president of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes there at Anderson High School, and Kurt Heidman, the former president of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes at Anderson High School. I'd like to welcome you all to our show.
Thank you.
It seems that Anderson has a pretty active Fellowship of Christian Athletes program.
We've been working on it. They started last year. Kurt was very instrumental in starting it, and I was really surprised as I joined this year. At the first meeting, there must have been 50 or 60 people, and we're really looking...
Just out of the high school?
Yes, looking forward to it growing a lot more.
Maybe we should back up for a second and talk about what the Fellowship of Christian Athletes is and what it does. And I know, Malcolm, you've worked a lot with them.
Ruth, the stated purpose of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes is simply to teach, tell athletes and coaches about the good news of Jesus Christ and how God can work in their lives. The pressure on high school athletes and college athletes in particular is just enormous these days. It comes from a variety of sources, from fans, from parents, from the media especially. The pressure to do well is enormous from there, and these student athletes put so much of their self-worth and their hopes in doing well in athletics, and all of these forces combine to really cause them some great problems emotionally. And we've found that by turning to the Lord, they can help with these difficulties. They can really begin to meet these emotional needs and helps them to find a very, very sure source of strength in what can be some really difficult times, especially when you play as badly as they've played at Anderson the last couple of years.
And how did you two find out about this sort of an organization?
Well, my brother was involved in the UTFCA and knew Malcolm, and I visited their Sunday school class one time, and he just said, hey, Malcolm, this is my brother Kurt, and he wants to get Fellowship of Christian Athletes started at Anderson. So, you know, a few phone calls down the line and that kind of thing, we got it started. Just last year was the first year that Anderson had an FCA group, and I guess Anderson's been around, what, 17 years?
20 years now.
Something like that. So it was you know, a pretty big deal. I mean, it was the first Christian group besides Young Life to be on campus.
But this is pretty typical to have groups at public high schools in Austin and other communities?
I think it really depends on the school, because there's always been the question of separation of church and state, and it's been a real fine line. I know that at Anderson we've been real lucky because our principal, Ron Buford, has really supported FCA and Young Life and some of those organizations. And it's, you know, we actually have a Bible study there on Wednesday morning before school starts. So I think it really depends on, you know, each and every high school, how they deal with this certain thing. because, you know, they try to be fair to all groups, and certainly not just the Christian faith.
A lot of
all
it has
groups.
to do with the principals at the different high schools, because there's a few high schools that the principal won't let them have anything related to Christians on campus. And we've got a principal that just happens to let us. We're fortunate enough to be able to come onto campus and, you know, pray and stuff.
And make announcements over the, you know, the morning announcements. We're able to make announcements concerning
Do you find
meetings
that
and things like that.
Are there other faith groups in your high schools?
Not that I know
Not that
of.
I know of.
But it seems like it would be welcome.
Sure,
Were there?
you know, that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing, that our school is real open to everybody, you know, into each group. So if they wanted to do that, there would not be a problem doing that.
What sort of things does the group do when they meet on Wednesday mornings or?
We meet at Wednesday mornings, we have a Bible study. Then Monday night, every other Monday night at 7:30, we have a speaker that comes. Last year we had a World War II veteran come and speak to us. This year we're trying to bring in Tom Kite. He may be able to speak us next semester. He's real busy this semester. And they just speak to us about their faith and their sport and how they do and how they deal with the problems of everyday athletics.
What sort of things have you learned from these speakers when they come through?
Well, I think it gives a lot of high schoolers an opportunity to see. We get a lot of athletes from UT, FCA. Malcolm's really been helpful last year in hooking us up with speakers, so that every week we'd have a speaker. And I think it really gets, especially high school kids, to realize that you know, there's lots of Christians out there. Even, you know, the guys they watch on television, you know, playing football for UT or basketball or whatever, they're around, and it's really, you know, we've gone to the UT huddle several times, and it's pretty inspirational when you got about 350 people in there, and everybody's, you know, singing songs and that kind of thing. It's really inspirational.
And you were telling me a little bit about these huddles that you have at UT. You work pretty closely with the university students?
Yes, I guess my quote-unquote official title is an adult sponsor of the University of Texas Fellowship of Christian Athletes. There are 3 adult sponsors. Ron Rogers and Tom Westbrook also work with the group. What we do is we just get together on Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock, and the format of our meeting, we'll sing some praise songs, very simple, uplifting praise songs. Have a great guy named Greg Berry, who is a wonderful musician who leads the music for us. We'll sing for 10 or 15 minutes. Usually we'll have a few announcements, and we'll have someone who will share what we call a testimony, and it's simply where a male or female athlete will get up and talk about how their faith in Christ has been working in their life on a practical basis. And then after that, we'll have a speaker. We use a variety of different speakers for 20 or 25 minutes. And once again, it's simply a time where, and this is what we try to do in the high schools also, it's where the speaker takes the principles taught in the Bible and takes those principles and applies them to everyday life. And that's what we try to get the speakers to do, and I think they've pretty much done a good job of that, making the Bible really become alive in that person's life so that the student athlete can then take those same principles and say, wow, I've read those, I've heard those, here's somebody who's telling me this is how it's worked in their life, so now I can take those things and try to put them to work in my life.
So there's a lot of role modeling, both at the college and the high school level.
Absolutely.
And junior high.
And the junior high. So there are groups at area junior highs?
Well, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes it's a national organization.
Okay.
And it's a non-denominational organization. It's not linked with any particular church or church group. We would call it a parachurch organization, I guess. Their headquarters is in Kansas City, and typically what happens, you'll find people who have grown up and had FCA in their high schools and then went to college and they had FCA in their colleges, and then they go into business or whatever and begin to start their families, begin to make some money, and then they think, gosh, we need to have a FCA group here in our town, and we need to get somebody to do that. And so you'll have a group of people, which is what happened here in Austin, get together, begin to support it, begin to raise money for it. You raise enough money, then you go to Kansas City and tell them you want to hire a staff person, which is what we did last year, a man named Reagan Lambert.
So you do have an office here in Austin?
We have an office. We have a staff person who works for FCA. We raise the money to support him, and his job is to go about and start these huddle groups in the junior highs and high schools here in the Austin area. Actually,
And to
he
help
has,
coordinate all the different groups?
correct.
So how would somebody who's watching the show today find this guy?
His name is Reagan Lambert, and he's in the phone book. You can just look it up and you can call him.
Okay.
If you're
And he
interested.
operates out of his home?
No, he has an office at First Evangelical Free Church. Not associated with that church. It's a great church. They're just nice
They
enough
provided an office space
to give
for
him an office free. So that's where you can reach Reagan at, either there or at his home.
Well, that's terrific. I really had no idea that it was such a large organization.
Yeah, it's we find, especially on the college level, almost all the athletes that come through have been involved in some type of Fellowship Christian Athlete huddle group in their high schools. So,
And does this carry on into professional sports?
yeah, it really does. Some of the best things, and y'all may have been to some of the camps. FCA, the nationwide group, they do these camps during the summer and during spring breaks, and they'll bring thousands of high school students and college students together for these camps, and then they'll bring
these are
in
national camps.
Yes, they'll bring in some really outstanding sports figures. I think they've had Oral Hershiser come in and speak to some of them. I can't remember the other ones, but a lot of professional football players, basketball players are very, very active with FCA, and they'll bring those folks in for a 2 or 3 day camp, and they're really, really a great time. Have y'all been to any of those, Kurt?
We went to the state convention last year, and that was in, Dallas, or Arlington, rather.
How was that?
It was great. There was
Yeah,
probably
great
about 600 kids there from all over Texas, and even some of the surrounding states, and so it was, they had a lot of good speakers there, and it was just a good time of, fellowship. I mean, you get that many kids, and, get to see there's, people just like you, kids just like us all around the nation wanting to worship God.
And there was professional football players there. They had some of the Dallas Cowboys there. And they had like a New York Giants tackle was there. So it was a real neat deal.
So it's really a program that goes all the way up through the professional sports.
Mm-hmm. One of the great things, like he's talking about, they had 600 students there. One of the critical things, you know this, in your faith, every single person who lives has an innate desire to know God. Every single person. God gave that to us when he created us. And you have these students who get these pictures of what life is like from the media and from whatever, and it's totally godless or totally distorted, that they really don't have a true picture of God. They want something, but they have this feeling inside they want to know who God is, but they walk around and they see people who don't have a clue, who don't know. They see the media telling them that, no, you should keep that totally to yourself. And you bring 600 students together, and all of them want to know who God is. And knowing the Lord is a thing that's open. It's a tremendous shot in the arm for these kids, because they begin to see, hey, I'm not unusual. Everybody really wants to know who God is.
So it helps them to focus individually and maybe to come together as a group.
Absolutely.
And it seems that this would be particularly crucial in team sports. Mm-hmm. This is what I hear often about the FCA, is that it's a real bond and a real link for inspiration for team sports. I'm wondering how that affects Anderson.
Well, like I said, they started it last year, and I got involved simply for the same reason that so many players and coaches get involved, because the pressures of what you do, the pressures from the parents, from the fans, the expectations are so incredible that you really feel like you need a walk with the Lord to try to take some of that burden off of you. And so that's what led me to join FCA. And there are some of my players that are there. I think also it's important, for coaches to be good role models. And you always get caught in the whole thing between separation of church and state. But I think just the fact that coaches are involved in FCA and their players see that, they say, hey, it's okay to be a Christian. And it kind of changes the whole outlook that everybody has. Because I think that's a whole lot of what FCA does. It's just, it gives you a place where you can belong and say, hey, there are other people that are just like me that are feeling the same things that I'm feeling. And it gives you a good group to fellowship with.
Sounds like for you it's offered a support as a coach, which is something we hadn't really talked about yet.
Sure. It doesn't change much. I played baseball for years and years, and through college and professional, and the pressure was always there. you know, and lots of times during my career, you know, I had to call on my faith to get me through the highs and lows of playing ball. And then becoming a coach, it really doesn't change. You know, it's the same type of pressures that you have as a player. And so coaches and players can really sit down and fellowship with each other because they really are feeling the same type things. And it's just a question of sitting down and saying, you know, we're going to put Christ ahead of this, and we're going to talk about these things because they trouble me also.
What sort of changes have you seen in your team?
I only have a few players right now, and so it's a little bit early to try to see that. In the past, you always notice it. It's a neat thing that you'll pick up a baseball glove and there'll be a scripture written on the baseball glove. And it's been a thing on my teams for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's been a real quiet thing that we've really never addressed it. We say the prayers before the games and things like that. And we never really addressed is putting Christ at the head. And that's what I'm kind of, to make it a more vocal point on the baseball team, just simply by being part of the organization, and hopefully my players will follow suit. It'll be something that then more of us are involved, and it's more of an open thing because we've just been doing it kind of quietly in the past. And it got to a point with me where that was not working, you know, that I just needed a closer walk with God.
It's a wonderful perspective on the team sports, and I'm curious what you feel in golf. That's your field, isn't it? Mm-hmm. How does that differ from the baseball and the football?
Well,
I know it's still a team, but
in golf in high schools, there are a team. We've got 5 players on the team, and we travel around everywhere. And the way FCA's helped our team is almost every person on the golf team right now is coming to FCA. Almost everybody on our team that we've got comes one time or another. So even when I'm not playing a sport, as a team, it helps you. Just in golf is one of those sports where it's up and down a lot. And when you're not playing good, you just need to have faith. It helps you to believe that, you know, instead of believing in yourself the whole time, you're trusting in God that He's going to help you, and you don't have to rely on yourself the whole time.
so it relieves a little bit of the pressure.
A lot of pressure. There's always somebody to turn to when things aren't going good.
And when things are going good.
Yeah.
I think another important thing is FCA is not only for athletes. At Anderson, we have a lot of kids that aren't involved in any sports at the school or even outside, and anybody's really welcome. It's just a chance, you know, it's just a chance for kids to get together in fellowship and you know, learn and worship about, you know, Jesus Christ. And I think that's important because we have, you know, people in the band or you know, people that just really, you know, don't do any athletics at all, and anybody's welcome. And you know, that's known all over school. You know, we say on the announcements anyone can come. So
It's a unique thing in Texas. The high school sports are a real community event. Certainly within the high school, I see the teams and the bands and all the other students demonstrating a lot of support for each other, and then the parents and the families and the larger community. So this is something that probably reaches into a lot of walks of life.
You know, one thing Greg was talking about that it's really a critical thing. We try to help these student athletes in teaching them the promises, the claims of the Bible. It helps them to keep their athletics in perspective. I can imagine me being a golfer who's broken 100 one time, the pressure y'all feel in these tournaments when you come up and you've got a 4-foot putt or a 5-foot putt to win the tournament and you miss that putt. It can be a very, very devastating thing because whether it is or not, that's the most important event in that young person's life at that point in time. If you spend much time studying the Bible, you begin to realize that your athletics, be it a 5-foot putt on the Anderson High golf team or be it the Super Bowl, is really a very, very insignificant thing in the whole scheme of things. It really is. You know, 5 years from now, nobody will remember who won the Super Bowl game this year. I don't remember who won it last year. It's a huge deal, but it really, in the whole scheme of things, doesn't mean much. It's entertainment, and it's fun, and it's valuable for that purpose.
And this helps keep it from becoming too much more than that.
I mean, when you really so much goes into winning your event, your contest, your game. It becomes your whole life. And in helping teach these student athletes about who they are as a Christian and about having a personal relationship with Christ and studying the Bible, we can hopefully teach them that, hey, you're doing this for fun. This is for an education. This is for entertainment. And it helps them keep that in perspective. And yeah, he wants to make that 5-foot putt and win that tournament, but if he misses it, he realizes this really isn't, in the whole scheme of human affairs, a huge thing.
That it's okay to be upset, but that it shouldn't devastate.
And it's okay to, pick up the game and play tomorrow and do the best you can and not worry about the mistakes you made the day before.
I see this group coming into play not just when the competition is fierce, but also oftentimes when there are injuries that prevent you from really succeeding. Do you see a lot of athletes turn to FCA with injuries?
Yeah, we see a lot of athletes come to FCA for injuries, for breakups. Boyfriend, girlfriend slams the door in their face after 3 or 4 years. Their heart's broken. They're on the verge of flunking out of school. Student-athlete people put their hopes and their dreams based on a lot of different things. And when something jerks that dream and breaks it to pieces, like an injury will do for an athlete who's dreaming about being all-conference and playing in the pros, they have nothing. They have nothing to fall back on. And they realize, hey, that dream's gone, but I'm still here. I still have to live. What do I base my life on? And a lot of different things can cause that catalyst to take place in their life. An injury, a breakup, a failure of some type, financial problems. You'd be amazed at some of the things that bring student athletes to FCA that are just tearing their worlds apart. And they want something that they can hang on to.
That's constant.
That's correct, that nothing can take away. And that's one of the great things about being a Christian. Nothing can take that away from you.
So some of your students, and I suppose the professionals, come to you or turn to the fellowship through crises, but clearly not all of them do. A lot of them just sort of grow into it. As Kurt was saying, you came to it because your brother had been involved, and it had been a real positive experience. It seems that there's a real positive negative. It offers support in hard times and inspiration in better times.
I think it gives a real reason also in athletics. When you go and play a game or whatever sport you're in, or in whatever you do, whether it's scholastics or your job, if you're doing it for God, it doesn't, even a loss can be a victory. I mean, as long as you're giving your 100% and you're doing your best, then if you lose a game, that's not everything. I mean, winning's not everything. Like I say, every loss can be a victory. So you see these guys that make a touchdown, and the first thing they do is kneel down and pray. It's a neat sight because they're playing for God, not just their team and just themselves. So it gives you a real reason.
There's another really interesting point that's critical, and it's the flip side of what we've been talking about. FCA helping when times are really bad. But another great thing FCA does is help when times are good. With the success the football team had last year, with the success that you've had on the Anderson baseball team, they've had one of the best programs in town for several years now. Success sometimes is hard to deal with. And especially in college, you have these guys come in and win the Southwest Conference Championship. When I was at Texas, I had the good fortune of playing on 3 Southwest Conference Championship teams and going to the Cotton Bowl 3 times. Went through a situation myself where I thought, hey, I start for the University of Texas. I played in the Cotton Bowl game. I don't have to go to class. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this. I am bigger than life because of the success I've had on the athletic field. Well, if we can take these student athletes and focus them on the Bible and teach them the principles in the Bible, then that doesn't happen.
It becomes a basis.
That's correct.
To go up
it helps
or to go down.
To stay humble. Correct. It helps them it keeps them from getting their heads in the clouds, because the success.
That's equally dangerous.
Oh yes. In fact, it's more dangerous. The success can be more devastating than losing or getting injured. It can ruin your life much more so than the other way can. So FCA does a good job of lifting this person up and helping this person be knocked down a few notches when necessary. It gives them a real balance in their life.
That's a wonderful way to think of it, as a centering pulse,
Oh,
really.
exactly. You know, and that's one of the main reasons that I got involved in FCA is that in my life and my career, I was literally living from one baseball season to the next and really basing my self-worth upon how well my teams did. And simply I needed something more constant in my life than that. You know, and that's where Jesus
Not very
Christ,
healthy.
you know, exactly. That's where Jesus Christ, you know, has to become the focal point. That's where you're looking in your self-worth and putting things in proper perspective, that it's not the most important thing in the world. There are lots of things that are more important, and certainly Jesus Christ is one of those things. And I'm hoping my team realizes that as well, you know, because so much of the expectations of how well they're supposed to do puts an incredible amount of pressure on them, and it's a way of saying that's not as important as we make it out to be.
Where do you think you're going in the next couple of years? You're about to graduate, aren't you?
Yes, junior this year, and I'd like to go on to college and then play professional golf when I get out of college. I just have to see what God wants to do with my life.
And you?
Right now, I'm taking courses at Austin Community College, and I'm not involved in any athletics other than just working out on my own and that kind of thing. I'm still having fun. I enjoy athletics, and I don't have to necessarily be competing to enjoy them. And I really don't think I'll be playing any athletics in college, but that's fine. I will be involved in the FCA still.
Nasty rumor you were going to transfer to A&M?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Is that not a popular rumor for Anderson graduates?
Well, these guys are UT graduates here.
I see.
That's not bad. They've got a good FCA group at A&M also, from what I hear. So you'll have somebody to hook up with there.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Sounds like a pretty extraordinary organization.
It does a lot of good. When I was at UT, I had the good fortune of playing on 3 Southwest Conference championship teams. Under Darrell Roll, we had some good years there, and got to start as a sophomore. And my junior year, my senior year, and I realized that I was a miserable person, unhappy. I had all the success in the world I could possibly have through athletics. I'd accomplished every goal I'd ever set for myself in athletics, but I was still very, very unhappy. And the thing I learned from that is that really turned me to the Lord, and that's what we want to communicate to these students in FCA.
Well, it sounds like y'all are doing a real fine job. And we're just about out of time now, but I'd like to thank you all for joining us, Malcolm and Jimmy. Wish you guys both good luck in your studies and your sports careers.
Thank you.
And I'd like to invite our viewers to join us again next week here on Austin Faith Dialogue. Thank you.
Information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472-7627.